Welcome to the DragonLance Saga Gaming Advanced Dungeons & Dragons episode series. This is the 6th episode, and I'm kind of looking forward to getting through this thing. I mean, it's fun, it's nice, but a little tedious. That's all. It is Braca, Brook Green the 5th. My name's Adam. It's also very early, so I'm still sipping on my coffee, as you can hear. Dragonlance came out of Advanced Dungeons & Dragons, so I thought it would be fun to read the core rules aloud and discuss them with the live audience. I would like to take a moment and thank the members of this channel and invite you to consider becoming a member. You can also pick up Dragonlance gaming materials using my affiliate link. Both links are in the description below. So we left off last time on combat, and we're picking up with melee. This is actually the nuts and bolts of most of the game for the vast majority of players. So let's get into it. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take timestamp notes to make my life easier on the other side. All right, so yeah, I think I'll do that. Melee. The term melee includes striking with bodily weapons such as teeth, fangs, tusks, tushes, claws, nails, talons, paws, etc. It also includes striking with various objects and weapons. The combat tables are used for determination of hits, and the amount of damage scored is given in either the monster manual or the player's handbook for weapons. It also includes non-lethal and weaponless combat procedures. While combat includes melee, melee does not include such facets of combat as missile fire, spell casting, etc. In general, the procedure followed in melee is explained under encounters, combat, and initiative, or non-lethal and weaponless combat procedures. Special considerations are given here. Number of opponents per figure. Physical size and space will dictate limitation upon the number of opponents able to engage in a single figure in melee. If official Advanced Dungeons & Dragons miniature figures are used to represent the creatures involved in a melee, then these miniatures will dictate the number of opponents which can be involved. Beware of using other fantasy miniature figures, as most of them are not designed to the specific scale and do not conform to the standards of the monster manual, or even necessarily conform to 25mm scale. In other cases, use the following rule of thumb. 1. If the single figure is size small, 4 size M, medium, or 2 size large figures are all that attack it under optimum conditions during any single round. 6 size small figures can attack it, however, space permitting. 2. If the single figure is size M, medium, it can be attacked by a maximum of 8 size S opponents, 6 size M, or 4 size L. If the single figure is size L, a maximum of 12 size S, 8 size M, or 6 size L figures can engage it at one time. Modifiers are impossible to tell fully as they include the physical circumstances prevailing at the time. It is obvious that a figure in a narrow passage or in a corner can be attacked only from a limited front. Similarly, the shape of the single figure and attackers will be a factor, as a giant snake has more bodily space subject to attack than does a giant, unless the attackers are able to fly or otherwise attack the entire vertical surface of the giant. Any long-bodied creature has more area open to attack, and wide-bodied creatures, or those which employ some natural body weaponry, which requires contact with the opponent, will be more restricted with respect to the number of attackers possible, viz. How many constrictor snakes can effectively attack an opponent? 2 basic grid systems are shown below, with one with hexagons, one with squares. These grids demonstrate how multiple opponents engage in a figure. See flank and rear attacks hereafter. So let's show those. And you can see here the top 2 are the hex and the bottom 2 are the square, set up in different arrays. And really what you want to look at this is the direction that the defender is facing and how flank and rear modifiers apply to him. And that's kind of it. Most of this, I don't even know if this is really fair to do stuff like this, because earlier when they were talking about positioning in combat, firing an arrow in combat, for example, they're saying that the entire round is you moving and shifting positions and angling and swapping places with the people that you're fighting. So how is this okay to nail down, oh, you're absolutely facing this way and this monster's behind you in one instance, but then when it comes to targeting combat, they're like, no, you're moving around too much, so it doesn't matter. Okay, well, I guess it's both situations. You're both moving too much and stationary just enough to have a flank and a rear. A little inconsistent. What are you going to do? To determine the number of opponents which can attack the single defender, use squares of hexes of 1 inch per face for 25mm scale, or you may simply view the illustrations used above and mentally visualize the situation. For example, in the case of a human being attacked by giant rats, 2 of the attackers would certainly be able to fit into each hexagon. If normal rats were attacking, 4 per hex. So 6 would attack frontally, 4 from flank positions, and 2 from the rear. If these same giant rats were attacking a centaur, for instance, a number of flank attacks would certainly be increased to allow 2 more hexes, 4 more attackers gaining flank against attack advantage. So special types of attacks. Flank attacks. All flank attacks negate any defender armor class addition for shields. Attacks against a rear flank, where the opponent is virtually unable to view the attackers, negate dexterity armor class bonus. Rear attacks. Opponents attacking from the rear gain a +2 to hit, negate any consideration for shield, and also negate any consideration for dexterity. Stunned, prone, or motionless opponents. Treat all such opponents as if being attacked from the rear, but in this case the 2 hit bonus is +4 rather than +2. Magically sleeping or held opponents. If a general melee is in progress and the attacker is subject to enemy actions, then these opponents are automatically struck by any attack to which they would normally be subject, and the maximum damage possible according to the weapon type is inflicted each time such an opponent is so attacked. The number of attacks or attack routines possible against such an opponent is twice the number normally allowed in a round. Otherwise, such opponents may be automatically slain or bound as appropriate to materials at hand and size, at a rate of 1 per round. Note that this does not include normally sleeping opponents. See Assassin's table for Assassinations. Invisible opponents. Invisible opponents are always at an advantage. They can only be attacked if they are attacking or otherwise detected somehow. These opponents always cause the attacker to attack at a -4 on 2 hit rolls because of the invisibility. They can never be attacked from flank or rear positions unless the attacker can see them. Thus, they are in fact visible. Important note regarding 2-hit adjustments. Certain spells, such as Curse, Prayer, and Protection from Evil, adjust the chance to hit of either the attacker or the defender, or both. Some changes must be made to the armor class if the figure concerned, not to the dice score rolled in attacking. An inspection of the combat tables will show that the dice roll progression will make some opponents hit-proof if the dice rolls are adjusted downwards rather than the armor class being moved upwards. At some point, the upwards armor class adjustment could also make such opponents virtually invulnerable, but this is less likely and not necessarily undesirable. Example: a reverse bless, a curse, is cast upon opponents. Therefore, the effective armor class of the side of which cast the spell will be raised by 1 category, so that a normal figure of armor class 4 would be treated as 3, 3 as 2, etc. By doing so, it is still possible for opponents to roll natural 20s and thus score hits. Who attacks whom? As with missile fire, it is generally not possible to select a specific opponent in a mass melee. If this is the case, simply use some random number generation to find out which attacks are upon which opponents, remembering that only a certain number of attacks can usually be made upon one opponent. If characters or similar intelligent creatures are able to single out an opponent or opponents, then the concerned figures will remain locked in melee until one side is dead or opts to attempt to break off the combat. If there are unengaged opponents, they will move to melee to unengaged. They will move to melee the unengaged enemy. If the now unengaged figures desire to assist others of their party, they will have to proceed to the area in which their fellows are engaged, using the movement rates already expressed. Meleeing an opponent spellcaster. If an opponent spellcaster attempts a spell and is in melee, and is attacked by a weapon or punched, grappled, or overborne, there is a likelihood of the opponent not being able to cast the spell. In the case of hits with weapons or successful striking with a punch, the spellcaster will obviously be prevented from completion of the spell, and furthermore, the entire spell is lost. In the case of grappling or overbearing, the spellcaster will absolutely be prevented from spell completion if the attack form is successful, and the spell is wasted in this case also. Both cases assume the attack occurring prior to completion of the spell, of course. Attacks with two weapons. Characters normally using a single weapon may choose to use one in each hand, possibly discarding the option of using a shield. The second weapon must be either a dagger or a hand axe. Employment of a second weapon is always at a penalty. The use of a second weapon causes the character to attack with his or her primary weapon at -2 and the secondary weapon at -4. If the user's dexterity is below 6, the reaction attacking adjustment penalties shown in the player's handbook are added to each weapon attack. If the user's dexterity is above 15, there's a downward adjustment and the weapon penalties is shown. Although this never gives up positive bonus rating to such attacks, so that a 16 dexterity and the secondary primary penalty is -3 to -1, at 17 -2 to 0, and at 18 -1, 0. The secondary weapon does not act as a shield or parrying device in any event. Breaking off from melee. At such time as any creature decides, it can break off of the engagement and flee the melee. To do so, however, allows the opponent a free attack or attack routine. This attack is calculated as if it were a rear attack upon a stunned opponent. When the attack is completed, the retiring fleeing party may move away at full movement rate, and unless the opponent pursues and is able to move at a higher rate of speed, the melee is ended and the situation becomes one of encounter avoidance. Monks open hand melee. Despite their training and capabilities, monks are not supermen or superwomen. The player's handbook states that they are able to stun or kill opponents with open hand attacks, and this is so. But such opponents are limited in general to man-sized or smaller. This is indicated below. A monk at first level is capable of stunning or killing only an opponent of man-sized M or smaller. For purposes of this determination, man-sized shall be maximum height of 6 feet 6 inches, maximum weight of 300 pounds. For each level above the first, the monk will gain additional stunning killing abilities at a rate of 2 inches of height and 50 pounds of opponent weight per level of experience gained. Thus, and we have a chart that I'm going to show here. At 17th level, a monk can kill with an open hand a 9-foot tall person weighing 1,100 pounds. That's pretty crazy. That's a lot of slap fighting. Wild. At the upper levels, 13th and above, you may wish to allow a variation upwards of some considerable height and weight, perhaps an additional 1 inch to 2 inches and 50 pounds per level, so as to allow some chance versus the larger and heavier creatures such as hill giants. Yeah, I wouldn't. That's ridiculous. To say a monk can just walk up and slap fight a giant to death is ridiculous. It's just stupid. All right, important. Monk's stunning killing ability can only apply to living things. Undead cannot be affected. But what if you just slap fight them, like break the bones apart? Doesn't that count? You just slap in a rib, you get a collarbone. Undead cannot be affected, and an open hand hit on an undead creature could be very undesirable from the monk's standpoint in any event, especially if the creature causes damage by touch, for the monk touching the undead creature then is the same as the reverse. Golems and doppelgangers cannot be affected. Damage from open hand attacks still accrues if the monster can be so hit otherwise. Actions, I don't know what it is about monks and the idea of an open hand attack, but there's nothing scary about that. You're facing off against a master swordsman or a master monk, and I'm still more concerned about I understand like the martial arts side of it. You know, you have to get close quarters, in close melee, and then you're gonna be taken down by the monk, no problem. But the idea of like a slicing weapon is still kind of more scary to me. I don't know. What do you guys think? Actions during combat and similar time important situations. The activity of player characters and player characters directed creatures must be stated precisely and without delay at the start of each melee round or before the appropriate diversions of other situations where exact activity must be known. If you're a stickler, you may require all participants to write their actions on paper. Conversation regarding such activities is the same as if player characters were talking aloud, of course. Delay in deciding what is to be done should be noted, and such hesitation will basically mean that the individual is not doing anything whatsoever during the period, but he or she is simply standing by and dithering, trying to arrive at a decision as to what should be done. Considering the melee round as 1 full minute, actually time a participant and you'll see what is meant. In a similar vein, some players will state that they're going to do several actions, which, if allowed, would be likely to occupy their time for many rounds. For example, I'll hurl oil at the monster, ignite it, drink my potion of invisibility, sneak up behind it, and then stab it in the back. How ambitious indeed. Where's the oil? In a pouch, of course, so that will take at least 1, possibly 2 segments to locate and hurl. If the potion is in the character's backpack, 3 or 4 segments will be taken up just finding it, and another 1 segment will be required to consume its contents. See drinking potions. Now comes the tricky part, sneaking up. Assuming that the potion has taken effect and that the dauntless character has managed to transfer his or her weapons back to his or her hand, for certainly all the other activity requiring the character to at least put the weapons in the offhand, he or she is now ready to creep around the fringe of the combat and steal up behind the foe to smite it in the back. If the space is not too crowded, remember, his or her friends can't see the invisible character either, and the monster not too far away, the time should only amount to about a round or 2. Therefore, the character's actions will fill something over 2 complete rounds. As DM, simply note these actions and begin them accordingly. Then, with the player starts to give instructions about additional activity, simply remind him or her that he or she is already engaged in the former course and that you will tell him or her when that is finished and new instructions are in order. If the player then changes plans, take the character from its current state and location accordingly. Example of melee. Party A, player characters, is composed of Aggro the Axe, a 4th level fighter, Abner, a 5th level magic user, Archaean, a 4th level cleric, and Arlani, a 2nd level thief. They're hastening down a dungeon corridor in order to avoid an encounter with a large group of goblins whose territory they are now leaving. It is a 10-foot wide corridor that they are moving with the cleric, fighter, and thief in a line in front, followed closely by the magic user. Suddenly, they round a bend and confront Party B, who are earnestly engaged in squabbling over some treasure. Party B is composed of Gut Boy Barrelhouse, a 6th level dwarf fighter, Balto, a 1st level monk, Blastum, a 4th level magic user, and Barjin, a 5th level half-elf fighter magic user. The first thing the DM must do is determine if either party is surprised. He rolls a d6 for Party B, where the players can see it, since there are no secret modifiers, and a 2 comes up. Hey, Sinister Trench, thanks for joining live. The leader of the party rolls and gets a 4 for Party A. Party B is surprised, since they rolled a 2, and will be inactive for 2 segments. Next, the DM checks distance and finds that the parties are only 10 feet apart, sufficiently near to close and strike. Party A immediately recognized Party B as a group of evil marauders they were warned against and moves to attack. First, Arlani, the thief, who had her sling ready, as the player had stated previous to the encounter, fires a shot at Blaston, who is obviously a magic user. A sling bullet gains +3 to hit versus no armor. Arlani would usually need an 11 to hit, but now needs only an 8. She rolls a 5 and misses. Aggro the fighter rushes forward to attack the nearest opponent, who happens to be Balto the monk. Balto is wearing no armor, so Aggro needs a base 8 to hit Balto. However, Aggro is using a +1 hand axe, and furthermore, an axe is +1 to hit versus no armor, so Aggro's adjusted amount needed to hit is only 6, or alternatively, the cumulative +2 could be added to whatever he rolls to improve his chances of rolling an 8 or better. Aggro rolls a 14 and hits Balto, but only 1 point of damage is rolled, plus a 1 point from the magic axe, 2 points total, and Balto can take 4. Meanwhile, Abner and Archaean have been preparing short first-level spells. The cleric shouts a command of "Surrender!" at Gutboy Barrelhouse, but Gutboy is a 6th level and thus gets a saving throw. Furthermore, he's a dwarf with a constitution of 16 and thus saves at +4. He therefore needs a 10 or better to save instead of a 14. He rolls a 17 and saves easily. Unfortunately, he's almost simultaneously hit by 2 magic missiles from Abner, the magic user. Against these, there is no save, and Gutboy suffers 6 points of damage from a possible 4 to 10. As Party B is surprised for 2 segments, Party A has a chance to hit in each segment as if they were full rounds. This does not apply to spell use, of course. In the second segment, Arlani chooses to set down her crossbow and unsheath her sword. Aggro would normally get another chance to hit Balto, who would be inactive for another segment, but Balto's dexterity allows him a +1 reaction adjustment, which means that he personally will be surprised for 1 less segment than the rest of his party. So this segment, he is up and on his guard, and Aggro does not get another hit attempt this round. Archaean the cleric readies his mace as Abner steps back and begins to unroll a scroll for use next round. Now initiative dice are rolled, and Party A's score is lower, so Party B gets to react to the assault. Balto attacks Aggro, who is in armor class 2 with his staff. He needs a base 18 to hit, and the -7 armor class adjustment for sword versus plate mail and shield makes this a 20. He, the DM, rolls a 19. Almost, but not quite. Gutboy Barrelhouse and Barjan, the fighter magic user, both attack Arcane. That cleric's AC is only 5. Gutboy has a +1 to hit due to strength, and his hammer's armor class adjustment versus scale mail and shield is +1, so he needs a 9 or better to hit, 11 before bonuses. He rolls a 12 and hits for 5 points of damage, including 1 point of bonus damage from strength. Barjin with a sword needs a 13 or better to hit Arcane. He rolls 13 exactly and hits for 6 more points of damage. Arcane is starting to have second thoughts about this whole affair. Meanwhile, Blastum has been preparing a shocking grasp spell, and now he steps forward and touches, rolls a successful 2-hit die score, Arlani the Thief, delivering 10 points of damage, 1 to 8 plus 4. There is no saving throw. Arlani has only 8 hit points and dies. On the left, Aggro again attacks Balto with his axe. He rolls a 12 and hits him for 5 points. Balto only had 2 points left, so he is dead. Arcane chooses to attempt to hit Gutboy Barrelhouse. The dwarf is clad in splint mail, and he is carrying a +2 shield, so his effective armor class is 1, though his AC type is 3. Arcane needs a base 17 to hit armor class 1, but using a mace versus armor class type 3 gives him a +1 armor class adjustment, so he really only needs a 16 or better. He rolls a 7 and misses. During this time, Abner has been reading a web spell from the scroll, and now it takes effect. The web stretches from wall to wall and entangles Gutboy, Barjin, Blaston, who are beginning to spell preparations, though now they've ruined and the spell is lost. And the unfortunate Arcane, who is too near not to get caught. All attempt saving throws, but only Gutboy Barrelhouse makes his, and thus is only partially entangled. However, his 17 strength will not enable him to escape the web in time to avoid being subsequently subdued or killed by Aggro. The melee is effectively over. Arcane can be helped out of the web by his friends, while Barjin and Blastum are basically helpless to avoid whatever the player characters have in mind concerning them. As you can see, a large number of things can happen in each round of melee, yet this whole fight took only 2 minutes of game time. Some melees will last far longer. It may seem at first as if there's a tremendous number of confusing variables that modify the action, but you'll be surprised at how quickly you'll be able to conduct a complicated melee and routine cover every point. An experienced DM can do it with only an occasional reference to the tables, though it is not recommended that you try this. Wait until it comes naturally. The main thing you remember is to do everything in an orderly, step-by-step fashion. Deal with your player's actions and reactions one by one instead of all at once, or you will never be able to keep track of what a round is and who is doing what when. Non-lethal weaponless combat procedures. It is not uncommon for players to be weaponless at some stage of a game, or for better players to wish an attack on an opponent barehanded in order to most effectively neutralize that opponent's potential. Whether to subdue or slay when neutralized is another matter. 3 basic attack modes are recommended: pummel, grapple, overbear. Each method of attack is explained separately, and each has its own table and modifiers. Variable applicable to all pummeling, grappling, and overbearing attacks. The attacker takes the number of the column he or she normally uses for weapon attacks, 1 being that for the lowest levels, 2 being that for the next group of levels, and so on. To this number, he or she adds the score of a secretly rolled d6, i.e. 1 to 6. The defender does the same, but the die score is that of a d4. The attacker may use this variable for 1. A bonus to his or her base chance to pommel, grapple, or overbear, or 2. A bonus to the score rolled for a successful pommeling, grappling, or overbearing attack. The defender may use this variable for 1. A penalty subtraction to the attacker's base chance to pommel, grapple, or overbear, or 2. A penalty subtraction to the attacker's pommeling, grappling, or overbearing attack, which has succeeded. The decision as to how to use the variable must be made prior to each attack. Unconscious parties gain no such variable. Pummel. This attack form is aimed at battering an opponent into unconsciousness. It can be used with fists or dagger pommel, as in pummel, as weapons. 25% of damage sustained is actual. The remaining 75% is restored at a rate of 1 hit point per round. Whenever an opponent reaches 0 hit points, unconsciousness occurs. It lasts for 1 round plus 1 round for every point of damage beyond 0 hit points, which has been sustained, i.e. 4 hit points equals 5 rounds of unconsciousness. An unconscious opponent can be trussed or slain in 1 round. Determination of first attack initiative. First attack initiative is determined by surprise, charging to attack, higher dexterity, or higher die roll, in that order. Whichever first occurs determines the first attack for the round. So in most cases, the pummeling attacker will go first in the first round. Base score to hit. The base score on percentile dice is opponent armor class value times 10 to arrive at a percentage chance to hit, i.e. AC 10 equals 100, AC 9 equals 90%, all the way to AC ratings of 0 and minus numbers, which indicate no chance or a negative chance to score a hit. The base chance to hit is modified as follows. And we have a little bit of a table, so I want to show you that. Attacker's dexterity per point is 1%, and you can see like over opponent slowed is 10%, and then opponent prone without shield or ready weapon and or helpless is an automatic hit, and so on. Some notes here. Magical protections such as rings, bracers, cloaks, etc. do not count as armor class, so ignore them. Encumbrance equals armor class of 10. And then another note here, do not count if unable to move freely, down, cornered, encumbered, etc. In each round of weaponless melee, there will be 2 pummeling attacks, and possibly several blows per attack. The attacker determines if a strike is successful, and then whether or not it does any damage and how much, if any. Percentile dice are rolled, and the score is modified as shown below. The pummeling table is then consulted. All right, here we go again. So we got the attacker's strength, which gives you a modifier. Open-faced helm is a bit of a modifier. So a bunch of modifiers here, but then you have your pummeling table. So based on your percentile roll, it tells you what type of blow. I've never seen this before. This is awesome. The type of blow, whether it's ineffective or glancing or solid, and what happens with it. That's pretty cool. So the modifier being series ends, determination of next strike must be made, and opponent unable to attack for one full round. Grapple. This attack form is aimed at holding the opponent and rendering him or her helpless. Sustained is 25% actual and 75% incidental, which is restored at 1 hit point per round. As in pummeling attacks, a score of 0 equals unconsciousness. 1 round plus 1 round for each point of minus damage sustained. Determination of first attack initiative. Surprise, charging to attack, high dexterity, higher die roll in that order. Base score to grapple. Multiply attacker's armor class by 10, ignoring magical devices, bracers, cloaks, rings, etc., but adding 1 for each +1 of the magic armor to find a percentage chance of 100% to 0%. Note, the attacker cannot grapple if either or both hands are holding anything. The base chance of grapple is modified as follows. So let's take a look at this. So you go from defender's armor protection is leather or chain or banded or plate, and it gives you the bonus percentage, whether they're slowed or stunned, or whether they're hastened. That's cool. In each round of grappling combat, there will be an attacker and a counter. Any existing hold automatically goes first until broken. Once it is determined that a grappling attack succeeds, the percentile dice must be rolled again to find what hold is gained. Then, the dice roll is modified as follows. So you see more modifiers here, and we're going to end up going to the next page for more modifiers and then the table. So bonuses and penalties are totaled and the result added to the rest of the percentile dice. The grappling table is then consulted for each result. So you got like waist clinches, arm locks, hand or finger locks, bear hug, stranglehold, kick, knee, or gouge. Nice. Any hold shown remains in effect from round to round unless the opponent scores a higher percentage hold, i.e. arm lock breaks a waist clinch and a hand finger lock breaks an arm lock, and so forth. Damage accrues until a hold is broken or until the holder elects to try for a different hold. The opponent may still inflict damage by lesser hold results shown after the double slashes. These might result in both opponents failing to the ground and continuing their grapple there. Note, if the opponent is stunned, a second attack may immediately be made, and the stunned opponent cannot counter for 1 round. Overbear. This attack form aims at quickly taking the opponent to a prone position, incidentally inflicting damage and allowing either a pummel or a grappling follow-up attack. The attacker can have either or both hands otherwise employed, carrying a shield, weapon, etc. 50% of damage inflicted is actual. The balance is restored at the rate of 1 point per round. Once an opponent is overborne, some other form of combat must take place. Determination of first attack initiative. Surprise, charging to attack, higher dexterity, higher die roll in that order. Attacking attempt to overbear, need not go first to so attack. Base score to hit, same as grappling attack. If overbearing attack succeeds, roll percentile dice again and modify the results, totaling based on the following. And we have another table here. So we have the base score to hit for overbearing and all your different modifiers, and then the results. So you bounce off or avoid the opponent is staggered, they're knocked to their knees, knocked to their hands and knees, or knocked flat. Nice overbearing table there. Some general notes here. Multiple opponent attacks. It is possible for as many opponents as will physically be able to attack a single adversary to engage in pummeling, grappling, or overbearing attack modes. Attack order must first be determined. Attack from behind negates the shield and dexterity components of the defending creature. Hits are determined, then results in in order of attack. Monsters using these attack modes will choose the most effective if they are human or humanoid and have above average intelligence. Otherwise, they will use the modes in random fashion. Creatures will always attack to overbear if they do not use weapons, except bears and similar monsters who seek to crush opponents by hugging attacks. These are grappling. Opponents with weapons used normally. If the opponent of a grappling, pummeling, or overbearing attack has a weapon, the opponent will always strike first, unless the attacker has surprise. Any weapon hit does no damage, but it does indicate that the attacker trying to grapple, pummel, or overbear has been fended or driven off, and the attack is unsuccessful. The weapon wielder then has the opportunity to strike at the weaponless one, for real, if he or she so chooses. Surprised opponents with weapons have no chance of a fending off strike, unless the attacker must use all surprise segments to close to grapple, pummel, or overbear. Monks. Even if grappled, pummeled, or overborne, monks are able to conduct open-hand combat normally until stunned or unconscious. Again, slap fighting. It's so ridiculous. All right, combat tables. Using the combat tables. Find the level of the attacker on the appropriate chart and matrix that with the armor class of the defender. The resulting number or greater must be rolled on a d20 for a successful hit. Penalties and bonuses may be modified either the die roll or the number needed to hit, as long as one method is used constantly. Attack matrices for missile and melee combat. Clerics affecting undead psionic combat. So 1, attack matrices for dwarves, elves, gnomes, half-elves, halflings, half-orcs, and humans. 1A, clerics, druids, and monks. 1B, fighters, paladins, rangers, and zero-level halflings and humans. 1C, magic users and illusionists. 1D1, thieves and assassins. 1D2, assassins table for assassinations. 2, attack matrix for monsters. 3, matrix for clerics affecting undead. 4, matrices for psionic combat. A, psionic versus psionic in mental combat. B, psionic attack upon defenseless psionic. C, psionic blast attack upon non-psionic creature. D, psionic attack ranges and damage adjustment. Opponent armor class description if armor is worn. And again, we have a little table here. So we have the armor class and the type of armor. Armor class below 10 is not possible except through cursed items. Armor class above 2 is easily possible due to magical bonuses and dexterity bonuses. To determine a 2-hit number, not on the charts, project upwards by ones, 5% increments, repeating 26 times before continuing with 21. CF Matrix IA. So here are our matrices. So first of all, attack matrices for clerics, druids, and monks. What do you guys feel about this? About each class having a different type of matrix in order to hit by? It gives notes here for missiles, -5 at long range, -2 at medium range. I'm not sure how I feel about that. Got a nice little scimitar there. Attack matrix for fighters, paladins, rangers, bards, and zero-level halflings and humans. So that's the majority of people here. Attack matrix for the thieves and assassins. Half-elves use attack matrix as elves do, while non-playing character half-orcs use the attack matrix for monsters. Dwarves, elves, and gnomes are never lower than first level, unlike halflings and humans, which may be of 0 level. Bards fight at their highest level of fighter experience. Special note regarding fighters' progression. This table is designed to allow fighters to advance by 5% per level of experience attained, rather than 10% every 2 levels. If you believe that such will be helpful in your particular campaign, If you opt for a per level advancement in combat ability, simply use a table but give a +1 to hit bonus to fighters who attain the second level of experience shown in each group of 2 levels, i.e. 1 to 2, 3 to 4, etc. You may, of course, elect not to allow per level combat advancement. And of course, the DM doesn't necessarily have to memorize all this. You can always just flag the page of the book or the PDF, or you could also just use a DM screen, which usually contains charts like this. Go back up for the Magic User and Illusionists. And of course, finishing out with the Thieves. Now we have Assassinations table for Assassinations, level of intended victim, the level of the assassin, and the percentage of success. The percentage shown is that for success, instant death, under near optimum conditions. You may also adjust slightly upwards for perfect conditions, absolute trust, asleep and unguarded, very drunk and unguarded, etc. Similarly, you must deduct points if the intended victim is wary, takes precautions, and or is guarded. If the assassination is being attempted by or in behalf of a player character, a complete plan of how the deed is to be done should be prepared by the player involved, and the precautions, if any, of the target character should be compared against the plan. Weapon damage always occurs and may kill the victim, even though assassination failed. But honestly, at that point, who cares? All right, and then we got the monster table for 2-hit. Creatures struck only by magic weapons. Despite special defenses which protect certain creatures from attacks by non-magic weapons, these monsters can be effectively hit by attackers as follows. So the defender is hit by a weapon, bonus is shown. Attacker must have hit only by the bonus here or the following hit dice of, and it shows that. And then we have Matrix for Clerics affecting Undead. So this provides for magical properties and sizes of attacking monster. Thus, massive hill giants can effectively attack most creatures, and all other types of giants can affect everything save a few gods. All right, so this is all applying to the Cleric affecting Undead. Paladins turn Undead at all as a Cleric 2 levels below their level. So numbers affecting 7 to 12 rather than 1 to 12. Evil creatures from lower planes such as minor demons, lesser devils, mesodemons, night hags from 1 to 2 in number. As a rule of thumb, any creature with armor class of -5 or better, 11 or more hit dice, or 66% or greater magic resistance will be unaffected. A paladin of first level or second level can be turned by an evil cleric. That would be hilarious. Have you guys ever had that where an evil cleric turns your paladin? Procedure. A d20 is rolled, and if the number shown is matched or exceeded by the die roll, the undead are turned from 1 to 12, or 7 to 12, or 1 to 2 undead, or evil creatures from lower planes are affected. 1. Evil clerics cause the creatures to take neutral or friendly attitude according to a reaction dice score. Neutral undead will ignore the cleric and his or her party. Friendly ones will follow the cleric and join the adventure. Good clerics cause the creature to move directly away from his or her person and stay as far away as possible for not less than 3 nor more than 12 rounds, moving at full speed for the duration if at all possible. The turned undead will be able to come back again, but they are subject to further turning by the cleric. Failure to score the number shown or greater means the turning was unsuccessful. No further attempt by the cleric can be made without respect to the particular undead, and they may proceed to attack or otherwise operate unconstrained. T. This symbol indicates automatic turning, whether to influence by an evil cleric or actually driving away by a good cleric. D. This symbol indicates the cleric has automatically brought the undead into friendly status, evil cleric, or destroyed or damned the thing, good cleric. And the dashes is no effect upon the undead is possible where a dash is shown. The progression on the table is not even. A variable increment of 5% appears, 19 to 20. It is included to reflect two things. First, It appears to allow lower level clerics a chance to turn some of the tougher monsters. It disappears at 4th level and reappears again only when the clerics have reached a high level, 8th and up. This reflects the relative difficulty of those clerics when faced with turning away the worst of evil creatures, but also allows the table to have them completely destroy the weaker undead. If for some reason you must have an exact progression, follow the columns for levels 1, 2, and 3, correcting to the right from there, and thus rather severely penalizing the cleric for upper levels, but by no means harming play balance. Column 4 will then read top to bottom, T, 4, 7, 10, 13, 16, 19, 20. Do not otherwise alter the table, as it could prove to be a serious factor in balance, weakening or strengthening clerics too greatly. And we have our chart for psionic versus psionic in mental combat. I'm a fan of psionics. I've always liked them. As long as there's an illithid out there on the Taladas or a Banasini or something. So we got your psionic strength, your attack mode, and then the defense, whether it's a mind blank, thought shield, etc. Total psionic strength is the attacker's attack and defense point strength total prior to the subtraction of attack points for the current attack segments and defense points for the current defense mode for that same segment. These points, along with losses, if any, are taken only at the end of the segment. All attacks and defenses are simultaneous. The attack mode is compared to the defense mode, reading across, and a result is obtained. Numbers indicate the number of points of defense strength lost. Psychic Crush shows the percentage chance of instantly killing the opponent. Any score above that shown for the defensive mode use indicates no effect. A dash indicates no possible chance of causing instant death. When both sides have attacked once and defended once, the psionic combat segment is over. All points of strength extended in attacking and defending are totaled separately. Points lost due to attacks are added, and a new total psionic strength is determined for each side. Exception: if a psychic crush succeeds, the defender is dead, and adjustments are made only for the victor's strength. Note, the subscripted numbers following the names of the attack and defense modes, as in Psionic Blasts 20, are the costs in attack or defense points respectively of using the modes. And then we have our psionic attack upon defenseless psionic table. Defender's psionic strength total is the score prior to any reductions, even though the current total for the individual could be as low as 0. The attacker's current attack strength and attack mode are compared with the defender's psionic strength total, reading across, and a result is obtained. Numbers indicate the numbers of the defender's psionic attack points lost. Letters: C is confused for 2 to 8 rounds, no psionic activity possible. D is dazed for 1 to 4 turns, no psionic or other activity. I, idiocy, psionic ability lost forever, though idiocy is curable by a heal spell. K, killed, raising resurrection is possible, but psionic ability is lost. P, permanent loss of 1 attack or defense mode or psionic discipline, and dazed as above. S, sleeping, is a coma for 1 to 4 weeks. Catatonic state 99% likely to be mistaken for death. Oh my gosh. R, robot, meaning mind is under control of the victor until released, or 2 to 8 weeks have elapsed and a saving throw versus magic is made. W, wounded psionically, 1 attack or defense mode or psionic discipline unusable for 2 to 8 weeks. Note, psionic creatures with mind bar ability will take damage only after all psionic strength is lost, so treat letter results as minus 40 points until 0 is reached. Damage accruing beyond the point where 0 psionic attack points was reached results in physical damage, hit points, being taken by the defender on a point-for-point basis. We have our psionic blast attack upon non-psionic creature. The psionically attacked creature must have a current psionic attack strength of 100 or more. If current strength is 99 or fewer attack points, the creature cannot use a psionic blast attack upon a non-psionic. So we have the total in the first column, and then the saving throw or attack range in the second. And then we have our saving throw dice adjustments over here. So magic users automatically get a +1. If you're an elf, you get a +2. That's nice. Subtractions are here. Yeah, I mean, psionics, everyone can attribute it however they want. But when elves are taught to telepathically communicate with griffins, royal elves, in Dragonlance, I think of that as a psionic ability. I do not think of that as casting a spell or something. Because we never had Elhano or Lorelanthalassa, casting a spell to communicate. It was just them communicating. So that's, in my own head canon, elves' ability to psionically communicate with griffins was always a psionic ability. And we have our attackers' creatures' total intelligence and wisdom, and then what it would take to cause death. Wow. So death, creature could be brought back to life as is usual. Coma is 2 to 12 days where creature cannot be awakened. Sleep is 5 to 20 turns where creature cannot be awakened. Stun is 2 to 8 turns where character is at usual stun condition. See combat. Confuse is 1 to 4 turns as per the spell of the same name. Enrage is 2 to 8 rounds, and creature affected must immediately launch a spell or physical attack upon any opponent or other creature. During enraged periods, creature will not think of defense or any actions save attacking. Panic, 2 to 8 rounds with reaction as a fear spell from the 4th level magic user. Feeble Mind, this lasts until a heal, restoration, or wish is used. The creature's combined intelligence and wisdom is in the 0 to 5 range when so affected. All memory of spells is gone, and the affected creature cannot attack or defend. Permanent Insanity, this lasts until a heal, restoration, or wish is used. Select 2 forms of insanity from the table herein, and have affected creatures behave accordingly as long as the condition lasts. Temporary Insanity, 2 to 12 weeks duration, otherwise as above. Mild Insanity, 1 to 4 weeks duration, 1 form of insanity only, otherwise as above. Note regarding insanity. In most cases, the fact that the creature has been afflicted will not immediately be evident to associates. Behavior will make the condition suspect as appropriate to the form of affliction. I like that. How do you guys treat character death? Because let's be honest, in OD&D, the original Dungeons & Dragons game and in Advanced Dungeons & Dragons First Edition, it was really easy to die, and that's permanent, and there's nothing you can do outside of crazy expensive methods of bringing back a corpse. And then there is, permanent loss taken on the side of the person in levels or in Constitution, for example. So did you have concurrent, sort of in the folder character sheets that were leveling up the same as is suggested as one method? Or did you start a brand new character from first level in the existing party? How did you guys deal with character death? I'm always interested in that because for us, we would always, start a new player character if our character died a few levels lower than everyone else, but we didn't want to start at level 1 because that would actually hinder the party and hinder the play. And I never thought about having concurrent players advancing in, a sort of side folder with the player you're playing. Anyway, I'm curious. All right, psionic attack ranges and damage adjustment. You have your attack modes and your ranges. Attacks is series, add 50% to range for each psionic linked, i.e. 2 equals 200% of range, 3 equals 250% of range, etc. Expenditure of double or treble points by an individual will double or treble range of attack modes, B, C, or D. Krynn, Arizona, you've never killed off any player characters. Wow. Good on you. I didn't do it, I wasn't trying to kill players, but, if that happened, then you have to kind of deal with it, That's interesting. Have you played a long time? Because, it was really easy to die in these early games. Let's see here. So we have attack mode, area of effect. Medium range attacks reduce damage by 20%, fractions round up. Long range attacks reduce the attacker's effective total psionic strength by 1 category, 25 points, and reduce damage by 20%, fractions round up. If the attacker is already in the 1 to 25 strength range, damage is reduced to 50%, fractions being dropped. Psionic combat notes. A. Creatures involved in psionic combat cannot engage in any other activity. However, psionic combat takes place very quickly, in segments rather than rounds, and is usually over in a very short time. For this reason, when psionic combat is begun, a good DM will usually just stop everything else until it is taken care of. B. Psionically attacked creatures will automatically throw up a defense if they can do so, and will use the best type most applicable they can. C. It is possible to engage in only one psionic activity in addition to defense modes at a time, i.e., a psionic while defending could either attack or use a psionic discipline. It is never possible to attack and use a psionic discipline, or to use two psionic disciplines simultaneously. D. In psionic combat, 4C, psionic blast attack upon non-psionic creature, the attacked creature's total intelligence and wisdom is used to figure saving throws. However, wisdom is not a standard given attribute for monsters. To compute the wisdom of non-psionic monsters, use the following table. And it bases the intelligence of the creature and gives you a range for their wisdom. Creatures below low intelligence have negligible wisdom. Saving throw matrices. Saving throw matrix for characters and human types. So you have your character class and experience level, and the attack to be saved against. And they're just numbers, so nothing really exciting about that. Excluding polymorph wand attacks, excluding those which cause petrification or polymorph, excluding those for which another saving throw type is specified, such as death, petrification, or polymorph, etc. A includes druids, B includes paladins, rangers, and zero-level types, C includes illusionists, D includes assassins and monks, NB, a roll of 1 is always failure, regardless of magical protections, spells, or any other reason which indicates to the contrary. Multi-class characters, characters with 2 classes, and bards check the matrix for each class possessed and use the most favorable result of the type of attack being defended against. Saving throw matrix for monsters. A. All monsters use the matrix for characters. B. Hit dice equate to experience level with additional pulses and hit points, moving the creature upwards by 1 hit die. Further hit die levels are added for each increment of 4 additional points. Therefore, for the purpose of determining saving throw levels, 1 plus 1 through 1 plus 4 hit dice becomes 2. 1 plus 5 through 1 plus 8 becomes 3. 2 plus 1 through 2 plus 4 also becomes 3. 2 plus 5 through 2 plus 8 becomes 4, etc. Most monsters save as fighters, except 1. Those with abilities or other character classes gain the benefit of the most favorable saving throw score, i.e. be it a cleric or magic user or thief. 2. Those with no real offensive fighting capabilities save according to their area of ability, cleric, magic user, thief, etc. D. Non-intelligent creatures save at an experience level equal to 1/2 their hit die, rounded upwards, except with regard to poison or death magic. Saving throw matrix for magic and non-magical items. So we have the item type and the attack form and the saving throw number here. So potions, magical oils, poisons, acids, while container remains intact. Includes pearls of any sorts. Silvered glass, treat silver mirror as metal soft, steel as metal hard. A, if exposed to extreme cold and struck against a very hard surface with force, saving throw is -10 on die. Magic items. Magic items gain a +2 on all rolls, plus +1 for each plus they have above +1, i.e. +1 equals +2 on saving throw, +2 equals +3 on saving throw. Furthermore, the magic item gains a +5 on saving throws against attack forms in its own mode, i.e. blow versus shield, fireball versus ring of fire resistance, or fireball wand. Non-magical items. Those items which do not exactly conform to item descriptions above can be interpolated. It is assumed that the item in question is actually exposed to the form of attack, i.e. the blow falls on the item. The fall is such as to not cushion the item. The fire actually contracts the item, etc. As with magic items, non-magic items gain +5 versus attacks in their own mode. Attack forms are 1 acid, 2 blow crushing, 3 blow normal, 4 disintegration, 5 fall, 6 fireball or breath, 7 fire magical, 8 fire normal oil, 9 frost magical, 10 lightning bolt, 11 electrical discharge current. 1. Acid. This assumes a considerable volume of strong acid, black dragon or giant slug spittle, or immersion for a period which would affect the item. 2. Blow, crushing. This assumes that the item is struck by a weighty falling object or a blow from an ogre's or giant's weapon, for example. Another example would be a ceramic flask of oil or a crystal or glass vial of holy water hurled against a hard surface or dropped from a height. A piece of cloth can be ripped or torn by a crushing blow. 3. Blow normal. This assumes an attack by a normal strength opponent or only fairly heavy object which strikes the object. This also applies to a ceramic flask of oil or a crystal or glass vial of holy water hurled against a tough but slightly yielding surface. 4. Disintegration. This is the magical effect. 5. Fall. This assumes the item falls about 5 feet and comes into contact with a hard stone-like surface. A softer surface, wood-like, gives a +1 on the saving throw, and a fleshy soft surface gives +5. For each 5 feet over the first 5 feet the item falls, subtract -1 from the die roll to save. 6. Fireball. This is the magical fireball, meteor swarm, red dragon breath, etc. 7. Fire magical. This is the magical wall of fire, firestorm, flame strike, etc. 8. Fire normal. This assumes a hot fire such as produced by blazing wood fire, flaming oil, and the like. This item in question would have to be exposed to the fire for an amount of time sufficient to have an effect, i.e. paper or parchment for but 1 melee round, cloth for 2, bone or ivory for 3, etc. 9. Frost magical. This is the magical frost or cold such as a white dragon breathes or spells such as cone of cold or ice storm. 10. Lightning bolt. This is magical attack from lightning called from the sky, blue dragon breath, etc. 11. Electrical discharge current. The shock of an electric eel, magical items, traps, etc. All right. Saving throws. The term saving throw is common enough, coming to us from miniature war games and D&D. It represents the chance for the figure concerned to avoid, or at least partially avoid, the cruel result of fate. In Advanced Dungeons & Dragons, it is the same, by means of skill, luck, magical protections, and I lost my place. Quirks of fate and the aid of supernatural powers. The character making his or her saving throw takes none or only part of the indicated results. I want to check something really quick. Fireball damage, poisoning, being turned into stone, or whatever. The various saving throws are shown on the appropriate tables for characters, monsters, and items as well. When someone or something fails to roll the number shown, or better, whatever is coming comes in full. To better understand the concept of the saving throw, the following is offered. As has been often pointed out, Advanced Dungeons & Dragons is a game wherein participants create persona and operate them in the milieu created and designed, in whole or in part, by the Dungeon Master and shared by all, including the Dungeon Master, in imagination and enthusiasm. The central theme of this game is the interaction of those persona, whether those of the players or those of the DM, with the milieu, including that part represented by the characters and creatures personified by the Dungeon Master. This interaction results in adventures and deeds of daring. The heroic fantasy which results is a blend of the dramatic and the comic, the foolish and the brave, stirring excitement and grinding boredom. It is a game in which the continuing epic is the most meaningful portion. It becomes an entity in which at least some of the characters seem to be able to survive for an indefinite time, and characters who have shorter spans of existence are linked one to the other by blood or purpose. These persona put up the frustrations, the setbacks, and the tragedies because they aim for and can reasonably expect to achieve adventure, challenge, wealth, glory, and more. If player characters are not of the same stamp as Conan, they also appreciate that they are in effect writing their own adventures and creating their own legends, not merely reliving those of someone else's creation. Yet, because the player character is all-important, he or she must always, or nearly always, have a chance, no matter how small. A chance of somehow escaping what otherwise would be inevitable destruction. Many will not be able to do so, but the escape of those who do are what the fabric of the game is created upon. These adventures become the twice-told tales and legends of the campaign. The fame or infamy of certain characters gives luster to the campaign and enjoyment to player and DM alike as the parts grow and are intertwined to become a fantastic history of a never-was world where all of us would wish to live if we could. Someone once sharply criticized the concept of the saving throw as ridiculous. Could a man chained to a rock, they ask, save himself from the blast of a red dragon's breath? Why not? I replied. If you accept fire-breathing dragons, why doubt the chance to reduce the damage sustained from a creature's attack? Imagine that the figure, at the last movement, a moment, of course, manages to drop beneath the licking flames, or finds a crevice in which to shield his or her body, or succeeds in finding a way to be free from the fetters. Why not? The mechanics of combat or the details of the injury caused by some horrible weapon are not the key to heroic fantasy and adventure games. It's the character, how he or she becomes involved in the combat, how he or she somehow escapes or fails to escape the mortal threat which is important to the enjoyment and longevity of the game. If some further rationale is needed to explain saving throws versus magic, here is one way of looking at it. Magical power is energy from another plane channeled through this one by the use of certain prescribed formulae. The magic obeys or disobeys the magic user because he or she controls and constrains it by a combination of the formulae and willpower. As magic users advance in level, their willpower increases through practice, and so does their control. Inherently, magical creatures exercise such control instinctively. A character under magical attack is in a stress situation, and his or her own will force reacts instinctively to protect the character by slightly altering the effects of the magical assault. This protection takes a slightly different form for each class and character. Magic users understand spells, even on an unconscious level, and are able to slightly tamper with one so as to render it ineffective. Fighters withstand them through sheer defiance, while clerics create a small island of faith. Thieves find that they're able to avoid a spell's full effects by quickness. So a character manages to avoid the full blast of the fireball, or averts his or her gaze from the basilisk or Medusa, or the poisonous stinger of the giant scorpion misses or fails somehow to inject its venom. Whatever the rationale, the character is safe to go. Of course, some saves result in the death of the character anyway, as partial damage causes him or her to meet death. But at least the character had some hope, and he or she fought until the very end. Stories will be told of it at the inn, and songs sung of the battle when warriors gather around the campfire. Almost, he managed to reach the bend in the passage where the fell breath of the blue dragon Razizes could not reach, but at last moment his toe struck a protrusion, and as he stumbled, the dragon slew him. Saving throw modifiers. DM stipulations. You may assign modifiers to any saving throw as you see fit, always keeping in mind game balance. Rule stipulations. Some attack forms will always give an adjustment to saving throws because of the creature considered, e.g. a large spider's poison attack is always at a plus on the saving throw dice. Some attack forms always receive adjustments against certain creatures also. Check facts regarding the characters and or monsters concerned. Magical devices and protections. Various magic items, rings, armor, shields, etc., allow saving throw dice modifications. In general, these modifications are cumulative, unless otherwise stated. Some spells also cause such modifications. It is necessary to familiarize yourself with all such information by having a working knowledge of both Monster Manual and Player's Handbook, as well as this volume. Circumstantial adjustments. Some adjustments are quite similar to DM stipulations. That is, if a character is standing in a pool of water holding a sword in his steel gauntleted hand when a blue dragon breathes at him, you just might wish to slightly alter his chance of saving. In like manner, you might wish to give the same character 1/2 or no damage from a red dragon's breath in the same circumstances. In this same fashion, you may feel no constraint with respect to allotting pluses to damage so metered out to players, adjusting the score of each die upwards or downwards as you see fit because of prevailing circumstances. Certain failure. As shown on table as A 1 is always a failure, regardless of magical modifiers to the contrary. However, as DM, you may adjust such failures according to prevailing circumstances, although an adjudication which negates failure on a roll of 1 is not recommended at all. Another rule you may wish to consider is allowing a save, where applicable, on a natural 20, regardless of penalties. Item saving throws. These saving throws are self-explanatory in general. It is a case of either saving or failing. Potions and liquids which do not make their saving throws should be noted secretly by you, unless the player concerned has his or her character check to determine if the fluid was harmed. Such failure will not otherwise be notable without examination and testing. Artifacts and relics. Because of the very nature of these items, you may desire to disallow any destruction or harm to these items by common, normal, or magical means. This rule may apply to some, all, or none, as you deem best in the circumstances of your campaign. You might, for example, decide that all such items have an additional +3 on their saving throw dice, and that certain obvious potent items are subject to harmful ones from other artifacts and relics, or attacks by gods or similarly powerful beings. Poison saving throws for characters. For those who wonder why poison does either killing damage usually or no damage whatsoever, recall the justification for character hit points. That is, damage is not actually sustained, at least in proportion to the number of hit points marked off in most cases. The so-called damage is thus expenditure of favor from deities, luck, skill, and perhaps a scratch, and thus the saving throw. If the mere scratch managed to be venomous, then death. If no such wound was delivered, then no damage from the poison. In cases where some partial damage is indicated, this reflects poisons either placed so that they are ingested or used so as to ensure that some small portion does get into the wound or skin of the opponent. Poison saving throws for monsters. There are exceptions to the death or damage rule for poison. Any creature with a thick layer of fat, where blood vessels and nerves are virtually non-existent, will be totally immune to poison from creatures which are not able to penetrate this fat layer when injecting their poison. All swine, were-boars included, will be in this protected class. Similarly, very large creatures poisoned by very small ones are not likely to be affected. Even the poison of the deadly coral snake could not be likely to harm an Apatosaurus. Giants would simply smash giant centipedes without fear of their poison, which would cause a swelling and rash, perhaps at worst. Whenever a situation arises where poison is involved, consider both of the cases in reaching a decision. Magic armor and saving throws. The magical properties of the various sorts of magic armor will sometimes, but not always, add bonuses to saving throw dice made by the wearer. All cases cannot be dealt with, for there will undoubtedly be many special circumstances which occur. There are guidelines, however, which will generally serve. Saving throws will not be aided by magical armor against gas, poison, spells which do not cause physical damage, like petrification, polymorph, magic charm. Saving throws will receive an armor bonus against acid, except with immersion occurs, disintegration, falling damage, fire, magical, and otherwise, spells which cause physical damage. Exception is metallic armor will not add saving throws versus electrical attacks, although non-metallic armor will do so. Of course, there are no saving throws. When there's no saving throw permitted, magic armor does not then give such an option unless otherwise stated. And we got a cute little cartoon here of a knight jumping into his magic user's arms. That's right. And I do not remember what the name of that creature is. I did know it at one time. It's been too long. Progression on the combat tables. A quick glance at the progression of numbers on the combat tables will reveal that 20 is repeated. This reflects the fact that a 20 indicates a perfect hit. It also incidentally helps to assure the opponents with higher armor classes values are not hit-proof in most cases. Should any DM find that this system offends his or her sensibilities, the following modification is suggested. consider the repeated 20 as a perfectly aimed attack which does not gain any benefit from strength or magical properties of any sort, spell, missile, or weapon. That is, the 20 must be attained by a roll of a natural 20. All bonuses accrue only up to and including a total of 20, so that even if a character attacked with a bonus for strength of +3 and a +3 magic sword, he or she would have a roll of natural 20 in order to score a hit on any creature normally hit by the second or successful repetitions of 20, i.e. the bonus, +3 an example, could not exceed a total score of 20 unless an actual 20 is rolled. Thus, the combat tables could be amended to read like this. And we have a little table here. 21 is natural 20 plus at least +1 bonus. 20 natural all the way down to die result plus bonus in total, and then 19 die result plus bonus in total. This then gives the advantage of allowing creatures to hit and be hit, yet it denies any undue advantages, as the second of all successive 20s, as well as all to hit scores above 20, require a natural die roll of 20. Do you guys do the double damage on natural 20s? And then conversely, do you do critical failures on a 1? Like a broken bowstring or the sword breaks off or something? Hit points. It is quite unreasonable to assume that as a character gains levels of ability in his or her class, that a corresponding gain in actual ability to sustain physical damage takes place. It is preposterous to say such an assumption, for if we are to assume that a man is killed by a sword thrust which causes 4 hit points of damage, we must similarly assume that a hero could, on the average, withstand 5 such thrusts before being slain. Why then the increase in hit points? Because these reflect both the actual physical ability of the character to withstand damage, as indicated by constitution bonuses, and a commensurate increase in such areas as skill in combat and similar life or death situations. The sixth sense, which warns the individual of some otherwise unforeseen events, sheer luck, and the fantastic provisions of magical protections and or divine protection. Therefore, constitution affects both actual ability to withstand physical punishment, hit points, physique, and the immeasurable areas which involve the sixth sense and luck, fitness. Harkening back to the example of Rasputin, it would be safe to assume that he could withstand physical damage sufficient to have killed any 4 normal men, i.e. more than 14 hit points. Therefore, let us assume that a character with an 18 constitution will eventually be able to withstand no less than 15 points of actual physical damage before being slain, and that perhaps as many as 23 points could constitute the physical makeup of a character. The balance of accrued hit points are those which fall into the non-physical areas already detailed. Furthermore, these actual physical hit points would be spread across a large number of levels, starting from a base score from an average of 3 to 4, going up to 6 to 8 in second level, 9 to 11 at third, 12 to 14 at fourth, 15 to 17 at fifth, 18 to 20 at sixth, and 21 to 23 at seventh level. Note that the above assumes the character is a fighter with an average of 3 hit points per die, going to physical ability to withstand punishment, and only 1 point of constitution bonus being likewise assigned. Beyond the basic physical damage sustained, hits scored upon a character do not actually do such an amount of physical damage. Consider a character who is a 10th level fighter with an 18 constitution. This character would have an average of 5.5 hit points per die, plus a constitution bonus of 4 hit points per level, or 95 hit points. Each hit scored upon the character does only a small amount of actual physical harm. The sword thrust that would have run a first level fighter through the heart merely grazes the character due to the fighter's exceptional skill, luck, and sixth sense ability which cause movement to avoid the attack at just the right moment. However, having sustained 40 or 50 hit points of damage, our lordly fighter will be covered with a number of nicks, scratches, cuts, and bruises. It will require a long period of rest and recuperation to regain the physical and metaphysical peak of 95 hit points. Recovery to hit points. When a character loses hit points in combat or to some other attack form, other than being drained of life energy levels, there are a number of different means by which such points can be restored. Clerics and paladins are able to restore such losses by means of spells or innate abilities. Magical devices such as potions operate much the same way, and a ring of regeneration will cause automatic healing and revitalization in general of its wearer. Commonly, it is necessary to resort to the passage of time, however, to restore many characters to full hit point strength. For game purposes, it is absolutely necessary that the character rest in order to recuperate, i.e., any combat, spell using, or similar activity does not constitute rest, so no hit points can be regained. For each day of rest, a character will regain 1 hit point, up to and including 7 days. However, a character with a penalty for poor constitution must deduct weekly the penalty score for his or her days of healing, i.e., a -2 of a person means that 5 hit points healing per week is maximum, and the first 2 days of rest will restore no hit points. After the first week of continued rest, characters with a bonus for high constitution add the bonus score to the number of hit points they recover due to resting, i.e., the second week of rest will restore 11, 7 plus 4 hit points to the fighter character with an 18 constitution. Regardless of the number of hit points a character has, 4 weeks of continued rest will restore any character to full strength. 0 hit points. When a creature is brought to 0 hit points, optionally as low as -3 hit points, if from the same blow which brought the total to 0, it is unconscious. In each of the next succeeding rounds, 1 additional negative point will be lost until -10 is reached and the creature dies. Such loss and death are caused from bleeding, shock, convulsions, non-respiratory, and similar causes. It ceases immediately on any round a friendly creature administers aid to the unconscious one. Aid consists of binding wounds, starting respiration, administering a draught, spirits, healing potion, etc., or otherwise doing whatever is necessary to restore life. Any character brought to 0 or fewer hit points and then revived will remain in a coma for 1 to 6 turns. Therefore, he or she must rest for a full week minimum. He or she will be incapable of any activity other than that necessary to move slowly at a place of rest and eat and sleep when there. The character cannot attack, defend, cast spells, use magical devices, carry burdens, run, study, research, or do anything else. This is true even if cure spells and or healing potions are given to him or her, although if a heal spell is bestowed to the prohibition no longer applies. If any creature reaches a state of -6 or greater negative points before being revived, this could indicate scarring or the loss of some member if you so choose. For example, a character struck by a fireball and then treated with a -9 might have horrible scar tissue on exposed areas of flesh, hands, arms, neck, face. I've never actually done that. I've always had it where if someone falls to 0 hit points and you like shove a healing potion down their throat, they just pop right back up, just like, I'm ready again, let's fight. And they continue on fighting. I've been cheating a lot in my youth. Oh well. Effects of alcohol and drugs. Speaking of, let me have a sip of my coffee. Characters on the influence of alcohol, narcotics, or other similar drugs will be affected as follows. And here we have an intoxication table. Gotta love this. So your effect on bravery, morale, intelligence, wisdom, dexterity, charisma, attack dice, and hit points. And then the state of intoxication. That's funny. So if you're greatly intoxicated, your bravery is +4. Yeah, that tracks. Beyond great intoxication, persons become comatose and will sleep for 7 to 10 hours. Nice. Notes on intoxication table. Bravery is covered in the non-player character characteristics section of this book. Increase in bravery, simply move the character upwards into foolhardy until foolhardy is attained. Morale pertains only to non-player characters. Intelligence, wisdom, dexterity, and charisma indicate the number of points the various characters are lowered temporarily due to intoxication. Attack dice for missile or melee combat are allowed according to the penalty shown. Note that opponent saving throws versus magical attacks made by an intoxicated character are raised by the same number, 1 or 5, 5% or 25%. hit points are increased due to the effects of the drug on the intoxicated character. He or she can physically withstand more punishment. Recovery from intoxication. Time is the only cure for intoxication, although certain stimulants will shorten the recovery. So we have our intoxication recovering table, and your level, slight, moderate, great, or comatose, the recovery time, and the stimulant effect. As time passes, the affected person moves upwards in intoxication level. Mild stimulants will have no harmful effects. Strong stimulants have a 5% chance per application of lowering the character's constitution by 1 point. This is permanent. Oh, wow. Insanity. All right, let me check this really quick. I just want to make sure. Yep. Okay. Insanity. When a character is struck by insanity due to mental attack, curse, or whatever, you may assign the type of madness according to the seriousness of the affliction or determine the affliction randomly using the table below. Each type of insanity listed thereon is described in game terms. As DM, you will have to assume the role of the insane character whenever the madness strikes. For most players, it will not be willing to go so far. Note that this list is not so comprehensive as to preclude any addition you desire. Just be sure that you follow the spirit of the rules here. Types of insanity. I don't even know some of these. I've never even heard of some of these. So we're going to have a learning experience here. These mild insanities are subject to psionic attacks. See psionic combat tables. Okay, let's get into this. 1. Dipsomania. This mild insanity form manifests itself periodically, about once per week, or whatever near large quantities of alcoholic beverages. The afflicted will begin drinking excessive quantities of ale, beer, wine, or like spirituous liquors. Such drinking will continue until the character passes out. It is 50% likely that the dipsomania will continue when he or she awakens, if anywhere near alcohol, 10% likely otherwise, in which case the individual will seek to find drink and become violent if denied. That's very much like Karamyn Majir. When Raistlin leaves him, he just sort of falls into this dipsomania. Interesting. I mean, I think that's different than regular alcoholism, because this states that you drink until you pass out intentionally. Like, your goal is just to go comatose. And some alcoholics just sort of like being drunk, and so they try to stay conscious. I don't know. Interesting. 2. Kleptomania. This is another mild insanity form which manifests itself in an ardent desire. In this case, an uncontrollable urge to steal any small object available. Kenders have this. The afflicted will furtively pocket small items, regardless of their worth, whenever the opportunity presents itself, and he or she will usually seek out such opportunities. There's a 90% probability of being seen stealing if the character is being observed. This desire to take things is absolutely uncontrollable, and the individual will lie to avoid being prevented the opportunity or when caught. Yeah, that's Kender handling for sure. Kleptomaniac thieves or assassins have a -10 to their stealing ability due to their overwhelming urge to immediately steal an item. 3. Schizoid. This rather mild insanity form manifests its effects in a personality loss. The afflicted has no personality of his or her own, so he or she will select a role model and make every attempt possible to become like that character. Selection will be based upon as different a person as is possible with regard to the insane character. Thus, an insane magic user will begin to follow the habits of a fighter, for example, dressing and speaking like that character and seeking to be like him or her in all ways. Pathological liar. This form of insanity is evident after conversing with the individual for a short period of time. The afflicted character will begin making outrageous statements regarding his or her abilities, possessions, experiences, or events. Whenever anything important or meaningful is discussed or in question, the afflicted cannot tell the truth, and not only will he or she lie, but to do so with the utmost conviction, absolutely convinced that the prevarication is truth. I have run into people like that. Pathological liars, they suck. 5. Monomania. This character will seem absolutely normal until presented with an idea, goal, or similar project which seems promising or purposeful to him or her. As of then, the character will become obsessed with the accomplishment of the purpose. He or she will think of nothing else, talk of nothing else, plan and act to accomplish nothing save the fixed end. The monomaniac will brook no swerving from any friend or associate, and he or she will insist that such individuals serve the cause with the same devotion that the afflicted character shows. Hostility and violence could result, and certainly not a little suspicion and mistrust if cooperation is not heartfelt. Once the desired end has been accomplished, the insane character will manifest symptoms of dementia praecox, 6 below, until a new purpose is found. 6. Dementia praecox. The afflicted character will be quite uninterested in any undertaking when suffering from this form of madness. Nothing will seem worthwhile, and the individual will be continually filled with lassitude and a tremendous feeling of ennui. No matter how important the situation, it is 25% probable the afflicted will choose to ignore it as meaningless to him or her. Yeah, it's a little bit of depression, I guess. 7. Melancholia. Similar to dementia praecox, this malady makes the afflicted given to black moods, fits of brooding, and feelings of hopelessness. The affliction will be 50% likely to ignore any given situation due to a fit of melancholia coming upon him or her. Okay, so there's depression. 8. Megalomania. With this condition, the insane character will be absolutely convinced that he or she is the best at everything. The smartest, wisest, strongest, fastest, handsomest, and most powerful character of his or her profession. The afflicted will take immediate umbrage at any suggestion to the contrary, and he or she will demand the right to lead, perform any important act, make all decisions, etc. This one is very dangerous. We've all seen player characters like this, I think. Delusional insanity is number 9. Similar to megalomania, in this state, the deluded will be convinced that he or she is a famous figure, a monarch, demigod, or similar personage. Those who fail to recognize the afflicted as such will incur great hostility. In normal affairs, this individual will seem quite sane, but the afflicted will act appropriate to the station which he or she does not actually have, and tend to order around actual and imaginary creatures, draw upon monies and items which do not exist, and so on. 10. Schizophrenia. This form of insanity has the well-known split personality trait. From 1 to 4 separate and distinct personalities can exist in the afflicted, base the number upon the severity of insanity. Likewise, the difference from each personality to the next should reflect the severity of the affliction. Each new personality will be different in alignment, goals, and preferences. A very severe case may have a different class also, but without coincidental possession, the new personality emerging will not have the actual abilities he or she may think he or she possesses. The onset of schizophrenia is random, 1 in 6 per day, which with a like chance of a new or return to the old personality emerging. However, whenever a stress situation, decision, attack, etc. arises, the 1 in 6 chance of schizophrenia striking must be checked every round in which the stress continues. Whoa. 11. Mania. Somewhat like schizophrenia, this form of insanity strikes suddenly, 1 in 6 chance per turn, lasts 2 to 12 turns, then 1 in 6 chance per turn of return to normalcy, and violently. The afflicted will become hysterical, enraged, or completely maniacal. D6 for determination, equal chances. The insane character will shriek, rave, and behave in a violent manner, possessing an 18 to 50, 18 to 75, or 18 to 00 strength according to the state he or she is in. Note that a female can possess 1800 strength when afflicted, as can non-human races otherwise limited to lesser strengths. The maniac is unreasoning when spoken to, but he or she will possess great cunning. The afflicted will desire to avoid or to do something accordingly, but not necessarily appropriate to the situation at hand. When the maniacal state passes, the afflicted will not remember his or her insane actions and will not believe that he or she is insane. 12. Lunacy. This violent and often homicidal state occurs when the moon is full, or nearly full. The afflicted character will generally behave as one in a maniacal state with paranoid QV, hallucinatory QV, or homicidal QV tendencies. When a moon is absent or in its first or last quarters, the afflicted will be melancholic. At other times, he and she will relatively be normal, perhaps a bit suspicious and irascible. 13. Paranoia. At the onset of this derangement, the affliction becomes convinced that they are plotted against him or her, spying, listening, and always nearby. As the affliction develops over several days, the insane character will become convinced that everyone around is part of this plot. Conversations are about him or her, laughter is directed at him or her, and every action of former friends is aimed at deluding him or her so as to fulfill the plot. The paranoid will be principally concerned about position or goods first, but as the insanity advances, he or she will realize that the plotters are actually after his or her life. The paranoid will evidence signs of increasing suspicion, take elaborate precautions with locks, guards, devices, and food and drink. In the later stages of the affliction, he or she will evidence highly irrational behavior, hire assassins to do away with plotters, and even become homicidal in order to protect his or her life. Paranoids will trust absolutely no one when the affliction has advanced, regarding their former close associates and friends as their worst enemies. Jeez. That would suck. 14. Manic depressive. This alternating insanity form causes the afflicted to swing from one state to the other in 1 to 4 day intervals. When excited, the affliction is 90% likely to become maniacal, 11 above. And when disappointed or frustrated, is 90% likely to become highly melancholic. Thus, in addition to the usual 1 in 4 day cycle of manic depression, he or she can jump from one state to the other depending on outside stimuli. 15. Hallucinatory insanity. This form of malady causes the afflicted to see, hear, and otherwise sense things which do not exist. The more exciting or stressful the situation, the more likely the individual is to hallucinate. Common delusions are ordinary objects which do not exist, people nearby or passing when there are none, voices giving the afflicted information or instructions, abilities or form which the character does not really have, strength, sex, wings, etc., threatening creatures appearing from nowhere, etc. It is 50% likely that the insane individual will behave normally until stimulated or under stress. Hallucinations will then commence and continue from 1 to 20 turns after the excitement or stress passes. 16. Sadomasochism. This form of insanity is coupled with maniacal urges and behavior. The afflicted individual is equally likely to be in a sadistic or masochistic phase. In the former, he or she will have an obsessive desire to inflict pain and probably death upon any living thing encountered. However, after doing so, the insane character will return to a relatively normal state for 1 to 3 days. Likewise, when in a masochistic state, the afflicted individual will have an overwhelming urge to be hurt and will act accordingly. After so doing, normalcy returns for 1 to 3 days. Note that friends and associates do not matter to the afflicted individual, nor do enemies. 17. Homicidal mania. The individual afflicted with this form of insanity appears absolutely normal. He or she will behave with what seems to be complete rationality, and nothing unusual be noted regarding the individual, except that he or she will occasionally manifest a unique interest in weapons, poisons, and other lethal devices. The insanity form causes the afflicted to be obsessed with the desire to kill. This desire must be fulfilled periodically, 1 to 4 day intervals. The victim must be human or of the same race as the character, if non-human. If prevented from killing, the frustrated individual will become uncontrollably maniacal and attack the first person he or she encounters, wildly seeking to slay. After such an occurrence, however, the afflicted will fall into a fit of melancholia for 1 to 6 days before returning to a homicidal state once again. Hebephrenia. When afflicted with this form of insanity, the character will evidence a withdrawal from the real world. He or she will wander aimlessly, talk to him or herself, giggle and mutter, and act childishly, sometimes even reverting to such a state as to desire to play childish games with others. This insanity is constant, but if sufficiently irritated by someone nearby, the afflicted is 75% likely to become enraged and maniacal, attacking the offender fiercely. If the insane individual does not become so enraged, he or she will become catatonic for 1 to 6 hours and then revert to hebephrenic behavior once again. 19. Suicidal mania. This form of insanity causes the inflicted character to have overwhelming urges to destroy himself or herself whenever means is presented. A perilous situation, a weapon, or anything else. The more dangerous the situation or item, the more likely the individual is to react self-destructively. Use a scale of 10% to 80% probability, and if the afflicted does not react suicidally, then he or she will become melancholic for 1 to 6 days. If he or she is frustrated in suicidal attempts, then the character will become maniacal for 2 to 8 turns and then fall into melancholy for 2 to 12 days. And the last one, 20, catatonia. When struck with this form of insanity, the character completely withdraws from reality. He or she will sit staring and unmoving, will not react to any outside stimuli, and will eventually die of dehydration if left alone. The catatonic individual can be moved, led around, fed, and so forth, but he or she will do nothing personally. If continually provoked and irritated in order to get a response, there is a 1% cumulative chance per round that the insane individual will react with homicidal mania. Once provocation ceases, catatonia returns. Naturally, these forms of insanity are not clinically correct. They are designed to conform to game terms and situations. Their inclusion is to fill in an area of the game where a condition exists and no adequate explanation is otherwise given. Cf. disease. And we have just moved on to a new section, experience. So let me update this bad boy. Whoa! It's not writing. Sorry, they updated the widget so it looks all different. That's man's my reaction. Experience, adjustment and division of experience points. The judgment factor is inescapable with respect to weighing experience for the points gained from slaying monsters and or gaining treasure. You must weigh the level of challenge, be it thinking or fighting, versus the level of experience of a playing characters who gained it. With respect to monsters, each hit die balances one experience level, counting each special ability and each exceptional ability as an additional hit die, and also counting any hit point plus as an additional hit die. Dividing the total adjusted hit dice equivalent of the monster slain by the total of all levels of experience of all characters who had a part, even if only one missile, blow, spell, etc., in the slaying, yields a fraction which is the measure of challenge. If the numerator is greater than the denominator, then full experience should be awarded. If the denominator is greater, use the fraction to adjust the amount of experience by simple multiplication. Note, it may be necessary to adjust character level in the same manner as is done with monster hit dice in order to gain true evaluation, as for example, 12 orcs are not equal to a wizard. Therefore, the following rule applies. If the average dice or level is 10 times greater than the average level or hit dice, there must be an adjustment of at least halving or doubling the experience point award as the circumstances dictate, except if the lesser group is approximately 20 times more numerous than the greater value group. 20 orcs might prove troublesome to a wizard, but even that is subject to the circumstances of the encounter. Tricking or outwitting monsters or overcoming tricks and or traps placed to guard treasure must be determined subjectively and with level of experience balanced against the degree of difficulty you assign to the gaining of the treasure. Division of experience points. How treasure is divided is actually in the realm of player decision. Experience points, XP, for slain monsters, however, is strictly your prerogative. It is suggested that you decide division of XP as follows. 1. XP for slain monsters are totaled. 2. All surviving characters who took part, no matter how insignificantly in slaying the monsters, are totaled. 3. XP total is divided by the number of characters, each getting an equal share. 4. Exception. Monsters slain single-handedly, and a magic user protected by fighters keeping off the enemy so he or she can cast spells which slay monsters, is not fighting single-handedly. Accrue XP only to the slayer and not included in steps 1 through 3 above. Example. A party of 12 characters encounters monsters. In the ensuing battle, all characters fight. 2 are slain, and the XP from monsters kills total 4,300. So each survivor gains 430, adjusted for difficulty and for being actual player characters, or halved for henchman characters. Experience value of treasure taken. Gold pieces. Convert all metal and gems and jewelry into a total value in gold pieces. If the relative value of the monsters or guardian devices fought equals or exceeds that of the party which took the treasure, experience is awarded on a 1-for-1 basis. If the guardians was relatively weaker, an award experience on a 5 gold pieces to 4 experience, 3 to 2, 2 to 1, 3 to 1, or even 4 or more to 1 basis according to relative strengths. For example, if a 10th level magic user takes 1,000 gold pieces from 10 kobolds, the relative strength are about 20 to 1 in favor of the magic user. Such strength comparisons are subject and must be based upon the degree of challenge the dungeon master had the monsters pose the treasure taker. Treasure must be physically taken out of the dungeon or lair and turned into transportable medium or stored in the player's stronghold to be counted for experience points. All items, including magic or creatures, sold 4 gold pieces prior to the award of experience points for an adventure must be considered as treasure taken, and the gold pieces received from the sale add to the total treasure taken. Those magic items not sold gain only a relative small amount of experience points, for their value is in their usage. Note: players who balk at equating gold pieces to experience points should be gently but firmly reminded that in a game, certain compromises must be made. While it is more realistic for clerics to study holy writings, pray, chant, practice, self-discipline, etc. to gain experience, it would not make a playable game roll along. Similarly, fighters should be exercising, riding, smiting pelts, tilting at the lists, and engaging in weapons practice of various sorts to gain real experience. Magic users should be deciphering old scrolls, searching ancient tomes, experimenting alchemically, and so forth, while thieves should spend their off hours honing their skills, casing various buildings, watching potential victims, and carefully planning their next job. All very realistic, but conducive to non-game boredom. And of course, we've got a nice little image here of a skull, a sword, and I don't know, what is that, a box? It's got holes in it. What if there's someone in the box? Who's in the box? What's in the box? All right. Experience points, value of monsters. The following table is for determination of experience points to be awarded for slain opponent creatures. If the monster is particularly powerful, double the exceptional ability addition may be awarded. So we have the chart here. We have our experience level or monster's hit die chart, the basic XP value of that hit die, the XP per hit point bonus, the special ability XP bonus, and exceptional ability XP addition. So treat peasants' levies as up to 1 minus 1, men-at-arms as 1 minus 1 to 1, and all levels as the N plus 1 hit die category. Typical special abilities: 4 or more attacks per round, missile discharge, armor class 0 or lower, special attacks, blood drain, hug, crush, etc. Special defenses: regeneration, hit only by special and or magical weapons, higher intelligence, which actually affects combat, use of minor basic defensive spells. And typical exceptional abilities: energy drain level, paralysis, poison, major breath weapons, magic resistance, spell use, swallowing whole, weakness attacks causing maximum damage greater than 24 singly, 30 doubly, 36 trebly, or 42 in all combinations possible in one round. Judicious application of these guidelines will assume that an equitable total number of experience points are given for slaying any given monster. Special ability bonus awards should be cumulative, i.e. a gargoyle attacks 4 times per round and can be hit only by magic weapons, so a doubly special ability XP bonus should be awarded. Likewise, if there are multiple exceptional abilities, the award should reflect this. If an otherwise weak creature has an extraordinary power, multiply the awarded by 2, 4, 8, or even 10 or more. Examples: 1. A giant centipede with 2 hit points has a base experience point value of 5, XP hit point total of 2, and an EAXPA for poison of 25, totaling 32 experience points. 2. An owlbear with 30 hit points has a BXPV of 150, XP or HP total of 180, and a SAXPB of 75, totaling 405 experience. 3. A 10-headed Hydra with 80 hit points has BXPV of 900, XP HP total of 880, and a SAXPB for special multiple attacks of 480, totaling 2,230 XP. 4. An ancient spell-using red dragon of huge size with 88 hit points has a BXPV of 1300, XP HP total of 1408, SAXPB of 2800, armor class plus special defense plus high intelligence plus saving throw bonus due to hit point die, and an EAXPA of 2550, major breath weapon, spell use, attack damage of 3 to 30 per bite, totaling 7,758 experience points. Whew. The alphabetical recapitalization of monsters, Appendix E, contains standard experience points values for monsters slain. These are suggested values, and you may alter them to suit your campaign. Special bonus award to experience points. If your campaign is particularly dangerous with a low life expectancy for starting player characters, or if it's a well-established one where most players are of medium or above level and new participants have difficulty saving because of this, the following special bonus award is suggested. Any character killed and subsequently restored to life by means of a spell or device other than a ring of regeneration will earn an experience point bonus award of 1,000 points. This will materially aid characters of lower levels of experience, while it will not unduly affect earned experience for those of higher level. As only you can bestow this award, you may also feel free to decline to give it to player characters who are particularly foolish or stupid in their actions, which immediately preceded death, particularly if such characters are not sadder but wiser for the happening. Gaining experience levels. Experience points are merely an indicator of the character's progress towards greater proficiency in his or her chosen profession. Upward progress is never automatic. Just because Nell Nimblefingers, Rogue of the Thieves Guild, has managed to acquire 1,251 experience points does not mean that he or she suddenly becomes Nell Nimblefingers the Footpad. The gaining of sufficient experience points is necessary to indicate that a character is eligible to gain a level of experience, but the actual award is a matter for you, the DM, to decide. Consider the natural functions of each class of character. Consider also the professed alignment of each character. Briefly assess the performance of each character after an adventure. Did he or she perform basically in the character of his or her class? Were his or her actions in keeping with his or her professed alignment? Mentally classifying the overall performance as E, for excellent, few deviations from the norm equals 1. S, superior, deviations minimal but noted, 2. F, fair performance, more norm than deviations, 3. And P, poor, showing with aberrant behavior, equals 4. Clerics who refuse to help and heal or do not remain faithful to their deity, fighters who hang back from combat or attempt to steal or fail to boldly lead, magic users who seek to engage in melee or ignore magic items they could employ in crucial situations, thieves who boldly engage in frontal attacks or refrain from acquisition of extra bit of treasure when the opportunity presents itself, cautious characters who do not pull their own weight. These are all clear examples of poor rating. Award experience points normally, when each character is given his or her total, also give them an alphabetic rating, E, S, F, or P. When a character's total experience points indicates eligibility for an advancement in level, use the alphabetic assignment to assign equal weight to the behavior of the character during each separate adventure, regardless of how many or how few experience points were gained in each. The resulting total is then divided by the number of adventures, to come up with some sort of number from 1 to 4. This number indicates the number of weeks the character must spend in study and or training before he or she actually gains the benefits of the new level. Be certain that all decimals are retained, as each 0.145 equals a game day. Not only must game time be spent by the character desiring advancement, but treasure will have to be spent as well. The amount of gold pieces, or the equivalent in value of gems, jewelry, magic items, etc., is found by using the following simple formula. Level of the training character times 1500 equals weekly cost during study and training. The level of the spying character should be computed at current, not to be gained level. Initial study and or training must be conducted under the tutelage of a character of the same class and profession as the trainee, i.e. a fighter must train under a fighter, a paladin under a paladin, a druid under a druid, etc. Note that the tutor might possibly accept some combination of gold and service in return for his tutelage at the DM's option. Exception. A character with a performance score under 2 need not be tutored, but the study and or training time will be twice the indicated period, i.e. 1 week becomes 2, 1.2 weeks becomes 2.4 weeks, etc. If a character has a performance score of 2 or greater, and he or she is unable to locate a mentor or train under, the character must remain at his or her current level until such a time as the tutor can be located and the necessary training and or study course paid for and completed before gaining of experience level is granted. Note that several training costs more as expenses are per week, and potential option of service is excluded. Training under a higher level character applies only to characters who are below the name or nominal upper level of their class and profession. These upper levels for each class are shown below. Cleric, High Priest, Druid is Druid, Fighter is Lord, Paladin is Paladin, Ranger is Ranger Lord, Magic User is Wizard, Illusionist is Illusionist, Thief is Master Thief, Assassin is Assassin, Monk is Superior Master, Bard is Special. Characters who have achieved name level must merely spend game time equal to the number of weeks indicated by performance in self-conducted training and or study. Costs in gold pieces or equivalent of the exercise then becomes a function of class. A cleric equals 2,000 per level per week for vestments and largesse. Fighter is 1,000 per level per week per tithing and largesse. Magic user is 4,000 per level per week for equipment, books, experiments, etc. Thief is 2,000 per level per week, tools, equipment, etc. Bards are a special profession as they have already earned levels as fighters and thieves. Once they begin gaining levels as bards, each must pay tuition to his respective college. These payments and donations must be at least 50% of all monetary gains, plus an additional 1,000 gold pieces per level upon gaining a higher one. Contributions and payments must be made to a druid whose level of experience is such that he or she is able to use more of their highest level spells than the bard is. In any event, the funds so received do not accrue to the druid, but pass to the amorphous organization of druidical colleges. Failure to make the required contributions prevents the bard from level advancement. Otherwise, bards do not need to spend extra time in training and study other than a single week, alone or in company with a druid to whom contributions and payments may be made, upon attaining experience points sufficient to advance one level of experience. All training or study is recorded in game time. The period must be uninterrupted and continuous. He or she cannot engage in adventuring, travel, magic, research of any nature other than that concerned with level advancement, atonement, etc. If there is a serious hiatus in the course of training or study, the character loses all of the benefits of the time spent prior to the interruption, as well as the total funds advanced for the training or study, and he or she must begin anew if a level of experience is to be gained. Under no circumstances can a character gain additional experience points by any means until he or she actually acquires the higher level through the required training or study course. Thus, a character who successfully adventures and gains experience points, which not only equals a new level, but are almost sufficient to gain yet a second such level, cannot opt to forgo the period of training and study necessary to go up a level in favor of gaining a few more points and training and studying for 2 levels at once. Once a character has points which are equal to or greater than the minimum number necessary to move upwards in experience level, no further experience points can be gained until the character actually gains the new level. This rule applies to bards as noted for failure to make the necessary contributions and payments. Hey, Justin, thanks for joining live. Yeah, in this, in AD&D, you have to train. You have to take work, the act of adventuring, which is your job. You have to take that off so that you can focus on actually advancing in levels. I'm kind of both minds about this. I like the idea that you can't just, like in a video game, power up and just continue trudging through dungeons. It forces you to think in terms of adventures in bite-sized chunks, Like, for example, at what point were the Heroes of the Lance leveling up on their way back from Zaxxaroth? Did they take time off? Who were they training under? I mean, if you have a member of your party who is a fighter that's a higher level than you and you want to go up that level, I would err that, yes, you can train under that fighter. That's right, Justin. If you want to rock and roll. All right, I'm at 2 hours. That's all I'm going to do for the day. I finished the experience section. Next time, we'll pick up on the campaign, which I believe is a next big section. Yes, it is. So that's going to do it for today. That's it for this episode of Gaming Advanced Dungeons & Dragons. What do you guys think about experience and combat? Is this the way that you treat it in your typical games? And can you see the progression from basic D&D all the way to 5th edition? And really, has it changed that much? Let me know in the comments below. You can always email me at info@dlsaga.com. And thank you all so much for tuning in live. For those of you who tuned in live to the stream, I really do appreciate you. I'd like to take a moment and remind you to subscribe to this YouTube channel, ring the bell to get notified about upcoming videos, and click the like button. This all goes to help other Dragonlance fans learn about this channel and its content. This channel is all about celebrating the wonderful world of the DragonLance Saga, and I hope you'll join me in the celebration. Thank you for watching. This has been Adam with DragonLance Saga, and until next time, Slanjavar.